Hi there, welcome to Dreamy Histories channel. Tonight we're stepping into the sandals of a Roman gladiator. And trust me, those sandals are probably filled with someone else's blood. You're about to experience the raw, sweaty reality of life in the ludus, where every sunrise might be your last, and breakfast conversations revolve around who got their intestines rearranged yesterday. Fair warning. If you think being a gladiator was all glory and cheering crowds, you're in for a wake-up call sharper than a gladius to the ribs. The mortality rate in your new profession makes extreme sports look like knitting circles. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, close your eyes and listen. You wake to the harsh clang of iron against iron, the sound reverberating through stone walls that have absorbed decades of sweat, blood, and fear. Your eyes crack open in the pre-dawn gloom of the ludus barracks, where 40 men lie packed together on straw mattresses that crunch with every movement. The guy next to you, a Thracian who goes by Bear Killer, is snoring loud enough to wake the dead in the nearby necropolis. His breath smells like last night's garum mixed with tooth decay, a combination that would make a corpse gag. Your cell measures maybe 8 feet by 6 feet, which you share with 3 other gladiators. Luxury accommodations these are not. The stone floor radiates cold through your thin woolen blanket, a gift from your lanista, who reminds you daily that you cost him good money. You stretch, feeling yesterday's training in every joint. That new move the doctor taught you, a spinning dodge followed by an upward thrust, left your obliques screaming. But muscle pain means you're still alive, which in this business counts as a victory. Around you, the ludus begins its daily resurrection. You hear Festus the Samnite already up and mumbling prayers to Mars. He's fought 17 times and credits his survival to religious devotion, though you suspect his ability to hamstring opponents in under 3 seconds might play a larger role. Someone's emptying their bladder into the communal pot in the corner, hopefully into the pot this time. Last week, new boy Quintus missed in the dark and the whole cell reeked for days. The hierarchy reveals itself even in these waking moments. The veterans, the ones with more than 10 fights under their belts, get the spots near the walls. Newer fighters like yourself cluster in the middle, where you're stepped on whenever someone needs to piss at night. The absolute rookies, they're by the door, where the guard spears occasionally accidentally poke through the bars during head counts. You sit up, vertebrae popping like knuckles, and catch a whiff of yourself. 3 days since the last bath, you're practically aristocratic by ludus standards. Some of these animals haven't seen water that wasn't in their drinking cup for weeks. The Germani especially seem to view bathing as a sign of weakness, though historians still argue whether this was cultural preference or just an excuse to smell like fermented bear. Through the barred window, you glimpse the practice arena, where you'll soon be sweating blood under the scorching sun. The sand is already being raked by slaves even lower on the social ladder than you. Imagine that. They smooth out yesterday's divots and bloodstains, preparing a fresh canvas for today's bruises. You notice they're spreading new sand near the eastern wall. That's where young Marcus took a practice sword to the temple yesterday. He's still breathing. Last you heard, though his eyes look in different directions now. The morning bell clangs, bronze on bronze, and suddenly the barracks erupts into motion like disturbed ants. You shuffle out of your cell, joining the river of scarred flesh and morning grumbles flowing toward the mess hall. Your stomach churns with anticipation, not for the food itself, gods no, but for the social dance that determines whether you'll eat like a champion or a condemned man. You enter the dining area, where long wooden tables bear scars from countless daggers slammed down during arguments. The pecking order here is more rigid than a centurion's spine. At the head table sit the primi pali, the first-rank fighters who've survived long enough to earn celebrity status. They get actual wheat bread, olive oil that isn't rancid, and occasionally even eggs. You watch Titus the Titan crack one open, the golden yolk a small sun in this dreary world. He's killed 32 men and has the scars to prove it, including one that runs from his left ear to his collarbone. Women pay good money to trace it with their fingers. Your spot is 3 tables down, with the secundi, second rankers who've won a few fights but haven't yet achieved glory or death. Here, breakfast consists of barley porridge that has the consistency of mortar and tastes about as good. The kitchen slaves ladle it into your wooden bowl with all the enthusiasm of funeral attendants. You notice chunks in it that might be yesterday's leftovers, or might be something that crawled in overnight. Best not to investigate too closely. Fresh meat gets the burnt bits, growls Cassius, shoving you aside to scrape the pot's bottom. He's been here 2 years, survived 7 fights, and thinks this makes him emperor of breakfast. The politics of porridge distribution are complex. Show too much weakness and you'll be eating scraps. But challenge the wrong person and you might find your portion seasoned with bodily fluids. So you've learned to navigate this middle ground, occasionally asserting yourself, but mostly keeping your head down like a smart slave should. The new arrivals, poor bastards, huddle at the furthest table where they get whatever's left, usually a thin gruel that's more water than grain. You remember your first week, stomach cramping from hunger while watching veterans feast. One scrawny Gaul actually tried stealing food then. The beating he received provided better entertainment than many arena fights. He learned quickly that in the ludus, everything has a price, and stealing from your brothers in arms costs more than blood. Between spoonfuls of this culinary catastrophe, you observe the complex social dynamics playing out. 2 retiarii sit together, as net fighters always do, discussing tactics in their peculiar cant. The heavily armoured fighters, murmelones and secutores, cluster at another table, bonding over their shared experience of cooking alive in metal suits. There's an unspoken segregation by fighting style, origin, an experience that would impress even the most bigoted Roman senator. You overhear fragments of conversation that range from mundane to morbid. Brutus the Briton is convinced the porridge is mixed with gladiator ash to make fighters stronger, a rumour that historians still argue whether it was superstition or actual practice. Someone mentions that Marcus died in the night from his head wound, which means there's an open spot in the upcoming games. Everyone pretends not to calculate their chances of getting his slot. The Lanista himself appears on the balcony overlooking the mess, surveying his investments like a farmer checking livestock. Gaius Aurelius Maximus, a name as inflated as his ego, made his fortune running gladiator schools. He spots a fighter who's gained too much weight and signals to the doctores. That poor soul will be running laps until he pukes, then running some more. In this business, your body isn't yours. It's a commodity to be maintained for maximum profitability. Eat up, ladies, barks the head trainer, a former gladiator himself who earned his freedom but couldn't leave the life. Today we're practicing against the post until your arms fall off. Then we'll reattach them and do it again. His joke gets a few grim chuckles. Gallows humour is the only kind that survives in here. The sun climbs just high enough to turn the practice arena into a furnace, and you file out with the others onto sand that's already hot enough to sting through your worn sandals. The doctores wait for you like vultures, wooden training swords in hand, ready to beat technique into your muscles until they remember the movements better than your own name. You've learned that these practice weapons, the rudies, weigh twice as much as real gladii, because if you can fight with these crude clubs for hours, a real sword will feel like a feather when it counts. Your instructor today is Africanus, a former Mumilo who won his freedom after 43 victories. 43. Most gladiators are lucky to see 5. He walks with a permanent limp from where Retiarius's trident found the gap in his armor, but he moves with the economical grace of a man who's forgotten more about killing than you'll ever learn. Today, he announces, spittle flying. We perfect the thrust that will keep your intestines inside your body where they belong. You square off against the palus, a thick wooden post that's been your primary opponent for weeks now. Its surface is scarred by thousands of strikes from hundreds of dead men who once stood where you stand. Some of the gouges are deep enough to hold rainwater. You wonder if your marks will outlast you, the only proof you existed beyond some Lannister's ledger noting your purchase price and death date. The first strike sends vibrations up your arm like angry bees. Africanus immediately cracks his vine staff across your shoulders. Wrong! You telegraph like a town crier. Again. You adjust your stance, trying to remember the dozen things he's told you. Weight on the balls of your feet, shoulders loose, wrist locked but flexible. It's like trying to juggle while someone throws rocks at your head. Around you, the arena echoes with the percussion of wood on wood, punctuated by the occasional scream when someone catches a practice weapon in soft tissue. To your left, 2 provocatores are sparring with an intensity that suggests personal grudges. One clips the other's jaw, sending him sprawling. The doctores don't intervene. Pain is the teacher here, and she charges no fees but expects payment in blood and sweat. You think too much, Africanus observes after your 100th repetition. In the arena, thinking means dying. Your body must know what to do without consulting your brain, like breathing, like fucking, natural. He demonstrates. His rude blurring in a pattern that ends with the tip pressed against your throat before you can blink. Despite his limp, he could still gut you 6 ways before you hit the sand. The heat builds until the air shimmers like water. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging like tiny needles. Your tunic is soaked through, clinging to skin that's already developing the leathery quality of a career gladiator. New boys often faint in this heat, earning mockery and extra training. You've seen one Germanic recruit collapse 3 times in a single session. He didn't last long, sold to a traveling show where he fights dwarves and bears for provincial entertainment. By midday, your arms feel like they're filled with molten lead, but this is only the beginning. Next comes footwork drills, where you dance across the sand in patterns designed to build the peculiar agility gladiators need. It's not like a soldier's march. It's more like a lethal ballet. You pivot, slide, advance, retreat, all while maintaining balance that could mean the difference between victory and having your head separated from your shoulders. See how he drops his shoulder before every attack? Africanus points to another trainee. In the arena, that tells your opponent everything. Might as well send him a written invitation to open your belly. The criticized gladiator flushes, but corrects his form. Pride is a luxury here. Survival requires humility and the willingness to be molded like clay. During a water break, tepid liquid that tastes of leather and desperation, you watch the elite fighters training in the far corner. They move like oil, every motion flowing into the next without thought or hesitation. One retiarius practices with a weighted net, casting and retrieving it in patterns that hypnotize. His opponent, a secutor, advances relentlessly, shield high, waiting for the single mistake that would let him close the distance. Even in practice, it's beautiful in the way a snake strike is beautiful. Deadly grace refined to art. The afternoon sun beats down as Africanus calls you over to a different section of the training ground, where various weapons and armor pieces lie arranged like a merchant's display of death. Time to find out what kind of killer you'll become, he says, circling you like a buyer at a slave market. His experienced eyes measure your height, your reach, the breadth of your shoulders, even the way you naturally distribute your weight. In the gladiator business, body type determines destiny more surely than any oracle. Too tall for a Thraex, he mutters, referencing the nimble fighters who dart in with curved seekers. Not bulky enough for a pure secutor, but those long arms. He tosses you a wooden trident, and you catch it instinctively, your hands finding the balance point without thinking. A slight smile cracks his weathered face. Retiarius, you'll fight with net and trident, wearing almost nothing but attitude and agility. Your heart sinks a little. Retiarii are the least armored gladiators, protected only by an arm guard and a shoulder piece, while the Myrmilones lumber around in helmets and chest plates. You'll be dancing nearly naked, relying on speed and reach to keep sharp metal out of your vital organs. The other fighters often mock retiarii as effeminate, prancing around with their fishing equipment. You've already heard the jokes about net girls and Neptune's dancing boys, but Africanus sees your disappointment and laughs, a sound like grinding millstones. You think it's shameful? Let me tell you about Crescens the Retiarius. Killed 17 heavily armored opponents, 17 walking fortresses, brought down by a man in a loincloth with a fishing net. The crowd loved him so much that when he finally earned his freedom, wealthy women fought over who would marry him first. You spend the rest of the afternoon learning the basic stances of your new identity. The trident feels alien in your hands, its weight distribution unlike any tool you've used in your previous life. Were you a farmer, a thief, a captured soldier? It doesn't matter now. You're becoming something else entirely. The net is even stranger, a web of weighted rope that must become an extension of your will. The net is not a weapon, Africanus explains, demonstrating a cast that makes the cords fan out like a deadly flower. It's a trap. You use it to control space, to tangle feet, to blind faces. The trident keeps them at distance while the net creates opportunities. He shows you how a flick of the wrist can wrap the weights around a practice sword, yanking it from an imaginary opponent's grip. Around you, other novices are discovering their own fighting destinies. A massive Germanicus is being fitted for secutor armor, his bull neck perfect for supporting the heavy helmet. A quick little Spaniard is trying on the arm-length manica of a Thraex, testing the weight of the curved blade. Each style has its traditional opponents. Retiarii typically fight secutores in a dance as old as the games themselves. The fisherman against the pursuer. The categorization goes deeper than just weapons. Each type has specific training regimens, dietary requirements, even different oil rubs before fights. Historians still argue whether these divisions arose from practical combat needs or simply to create more entertaining variety for the bloodthirsty crowds. You suspect it's both. Romans love their categories as much as they love their blood sports. You'll train with Nereus, Africanus informs you, pointing to a scarred retiarius practicing nearby. He survived 23 fights, lost an ear and 3 fingers, but he's still breathing, which makes him your new god. Nereus glances over, taking in your lanky frame with the calculating look of a man who's seen too many training partners die. His remaining ear is cauliflowered into a grotesque lump, and his net hand is missing the pinky and ring finger, but he moves with liquid confidence. You notice the psychological warfare between fighting styles even in training. The heavily armored fighters call out taunts about fish boys and net fairies, while the retiarii respond with jokes about metal tortoises and walking ovens. It's tribal, this division, creating artificial rivalries that will translate into genuine hatred in the arena. You're already beginning to feel defensive about your assigned style, even though you've been a retiarius for all of an hour. Your training session ends when Titus the Titan takes a practice spear through his thigh, the wooden point somehow finding the one spot his armor doesn't cover. Blood spurts in rhythm with his heartbeat, painting the sand in arterial graffiti. Within seconds, the ludus medicus appears, moving with the urgency of a man whose paycheck depends on keeping expensive gladiators breathing. You're hustled to the medical quarters along with the other wounded, clutching various injuries that range from spectacular to mundane. The infirmary reeks of vinegar, honey, and that peculiar metallic scent of fresh blood mixed with herbal concoctions. Walls lined with shelves hold ceramic jars labeled in Greek. The medical staff here are mostly Greeks, because Romans trust them with medicine the way they trust Germans with heavy lifting. You're directed to sit on a bench while the medicus, a thin man named Dionysios, inspects the gash on your forearm where an over-eager sparring partner's rudis found flesh. Hold still, he mutters in accented Latin, producing a bronze needle that's been sitting in strong wine. This will hurt less if you don't flinch like a virgin at a lupercal. His hands are surprisingly gentle as he begins stitching, using gut thread that he assures you came from a sheep, not a previous patient. The joke might be funnier if you were certain it was actually a joke. Around you, the medical chamber showcases Rome's strange relationship with healthcare, sophisticated enough to perform cataract surgery, primitive enough to believe that gladiator blood cures epilepsy. You watch Dionysios treat a concussion by drilling a small hole in the fighter's skull to release the bad humors, a procedure that somehow actually works often enough to keep it in practice. The patient, a Numidian secutor, grits his teeth through the operation, knowing that showing weakness here translates to perceived weakness in the arena. You're lucky, Dionysios tells you, finishing your stitches with practiced efficiency. Clean cut, no muscle damage. Keep it dry for 3 days. Wash with vinegar twice daily. He produces a small clay pot of salve that smells like rotting fish mixed with roses. Egyptian remedy. Don't ask what's in it. Just be grateful it prevents the wound fever better than prayers to Asclepius. The medical treatment here is better than what most Romans receive, a fact that strikes you as grimly practical. A dead gladiator is lost revenue, while a dead plebeian just means more room in the subura. You've seen fighters survive injuries that would kill ordinary citizens, compound fractures set with remarkable skill, gut wounds sewn shut with techniques that won't be rediscovered for centuries. The Medici here even perform a crude form of physical therapy, using weights and stretches to restore function to damaged limbs, but not everything can be fixed. In the corner lies a Mamilo, whose left eye was gouged out in training. Accidentally, supposedly, though the bad blood between him and his sparring partner suggests otherwise. Dionysios packs the socket with wine-soaked linen and opium paste, the best treatment available in an era before antibiotics. The fighter will likely survive but never compete again, destined to become a practice dummy for newer gladiators or, if he's lucky, a servant in the ludus household. The medical supplies tell their own story of pragmatism mixed with superstition. Surgical tools that wouldn't look out of place in a modern operating room share shelf space with amulets against the evil eye. Precise anatomical drawings, probably stolen from Alexandria, hang next to charts showing which days are auspicious for bloodletting. Historians still argue whether Roman medicine was remarkably advanced or accidentally effective. But in this moment, with your arm neatly stitched and already numbing from whatever Dionysios smeared on it, you're just grateful it works. Next, the medicus calls, and you're replaced by a retiarius with a dislocated shoulder. You hear the joint pop back into place, followed by creative cursing in 3 languages. The sound makes you queasy, but you're learning to compartmentalize physical horror the way a butcher learns to ignore the squeals. It's just meat and bone and the various fluids that leak out when you damage the container. Nothing personal, nothing sacred. Just bodies that need maintenance between bouts of trying to kill each other. The afternoon break arrives like a blessing from the gods, though you suspect even divine intervention couldn't make this heat bearable. You collapse in the shade of the barracks wall alongside men who, just hours ago, were trying to cave in your skull with wooden weapons. This is the strange paradox of gladiator life. Brutal enemies in training, brothers in bondage during rest. The sand clings to your sweat-soaked skin like a grainy second flesh as you pass around a water skin that tastes of leather and communal desperation. You fight like a pregnant cow, laughs Marcus the Macedonian, the same man who gave you the arm wound currently throbbing beneath Egyptian fish paste. All wobble, no grace. But there's no real malice in it. He shares his private stash of decent wine with you, stolen or bartered from who knows where. This is how friendships form in the ludus, through shared suffering and the gallows humour that makes it bearable. You learn their stories in fragments, like pottery shards that hint at the complete vessel. Marcus was a soldier who killed his centurion over a woman. Or was it gambling debts? The story changes with each telling. Beside him sits Gracchus, a volunteer who signed up for the steady food and potential glory, leaving behind a family that probably thinks he's insane. My wife's father owns a bakery, he explains. You know how many loaves I'd have to sell to make what I'll earn from one victory. The voluntary gladiators fascinate and disturb you in equal measure. While you and most others are here by force, slaves, criminals, prisoners of war, these auctorati chose this life. They signed contracts, took oaths, literally volunteered to become infames, surrendering their legal rights for the chance to die entertainingly. Some are bankrupts fleeing creditors, others younger sons with no inheritance, and a few are just addicted to the violence and adoration. Historians still argue whether they were brave or merely stupid. In Carthage, says Hanno, a Phoenician captured during some border skirmish, gladiators are sacrifices to Baal. Here, you're just entertainment with a chance of survival. I prefer Roman pragmatism to Carthaginian religion. He's missing 2 fingers from his first fight, but considers himself lucky. His opponent lost his head, which trumps digital deficiency every time. The social dynamics during these breaks reveal themselves in subtle ways. Ethnic groups cluster together when they can, Greeks with Greeks, Gauls with Gauls, but the shared experience of the ludus creates its own tribe. You find yourself bonding with men whose languages you barely speak, united by the universal vocabulary of scars and the possibility of tomorrow's death. Even bitter enemies from past wars discover that historical grievances matter less than surviving next week's games. "You know what I miss most?" asks Septimus, a former farm slave from Sicily. "The smell of olive groves in morning mist. Here, everything smells like sweat, blood, and shit." Others chime in with their own sensory memories: Germanic forests, Egyptian dates, the fish markets of Athens. For a moment, the ludus walls seem to dissolve, replaced by a geography of longing that spans the known world. But nostalgia is a luxury, and reality reasserts itself when a trainer walks by, casually kicking anyone who looks too comfortable. "Rest times for recovering, not reminiscing," he barks. "Save your tears for your funeral." The moment breaks, but the connections remain. These men know they might face each other in the arena, might have to kill or be killed by someone they've shared wine with, but for now, they're all just trying to survive another day. You notice the veterans handle these relationships differently. They're friendly but maintain emotional distance, having learned that caring too much about fellow gladiators is a recipe for heartbreak. Every friend is a potential opponent, every bond a future grief. It's a defensive mechanism as essential as a shield, protecting the soft parts of humanity that could get you killed in this business. The bell rings, signaling the end of break. You haul yourself up, muscles already stiffening, and prepare for the afternoon's second round of training. But something has shifted. You're no longer just an individual trying to survive. You're part of something, however temporary and tragic. These connections, fragile as spider silk and just as sticky, are what make the ludus bearable. Tomorrow you might die, but today you have brothers in bondage who understand exactly what that means. As evening approaches, the Lanista Gaius Aurelius Maximus descends from his villa overlooking the ludus, accompanied by two Greek accountants clutching wax tablets like their lives depend on accurate record-keeping, which, knowing Roman business practices, they probably do. You and the other gladiators are lined up for inspection, standing naked while these men evaluate you like cattle at market. It's a humiliation you've grown numb to, just another indignity in a life full of them. "This one's put on muscle," one accountant notes, prodding your bicep with a stylus. "Up his food ration by a quarter. Good investment potential." They discuss your market value as if you're not standing right there, debating whether you're worth the extra barley and occasional meat. In the gladiator business, everything is measured in profit versus expense: the food you eat, the medical care you receive, even the sand you bleed on costs money. Maximus himself examines a new acquisition, a Parthian archer who'll be retrained as a Sagittarius. 40 aurei, he scoffs at the purchase price. For that money, he better shoot arrows through keyholes while blindfolded. The Lanista's wealth is evident in his purple-trimmed toga and the heavy gold rings that could feed a family for a year. He made his fortune understanding that gladiators are simultaneously disposable and valuable, a paradox he exploits with ruthless efficiency. You learn the economics of your own existence through overheard conversations. A basic gladiator costs about 2,000 sesterces to purchase and train. If you survive your first fight, your value doubles, win 5 times, and you're worth more than a small farm. The elite fighters, those with 20 or more victories, are valued higher than racehorses. Their rental fees for private games astronomical. It's a perverse sort of pride, knowing your death would represent a significant financial loss. The Senator Claudius wants to rent 12 fighters for his son's coming-of-age games. Maximus tells his staff, medium quality, Nothing too expensive. Include the Thracian who limps if he dies. We can claim it was a pre-existing condition. They haggle over rental rates like fishwives. Each gladiator assigned a daily fee based on experience and crowd appeal. You're worth about 50 sesterces per day, barely enough to cover your upkeep, but that will change if you start winning. The business extends beyond simple rentals. Gladiators endorse products. You've seen pottery shards advertising Celadus the Thracian's favorite wine, and carved reliefs of famous fighters decorating oil lamps. The top performers have agents who negotiate appearance fees at wealthy parties, where they flex and tell war stories for aristocrats who get aroused by proximity to death. One retiarius reportedly earned 1,000 sesterces just to stand naked at a senator's wife's birthday celebration. But the real money is in gambling. Massive sums change hands based on gladiatorial outcomes. And while fixing fights is theoretically punishable by death, everyone knows it happens. You've already been approached by a trainer suggesting you take your time, killing an opponent in your next bout, stretching the entertainment to increase betting action. The fact that this could get you killed. Angry crowds have been known to demand death for boring fighters. Seems less important than the potential profit. This batch is ready for the next market games, the accountant concludes after inspecting everyone, except the German with the infected wound. Sell him to the mines before he costs us more in medical supplies. The casual death sentence is delivered without emotion. A gladiator who can't fight is just a financial drain. And Roman business practices don't include retirement benefits for slaves. The inspection ends with branding updates. Those who've won fights get small marks burned into their shoulders, a running tally of their value. You have two now, each representing a man whose blood you've spilled for the crowd's amusement. Some veterans have so many brands their shoulders look like cuneiform tablets. It's accounting written in flesh. Permanent records of your worth in the economy of death. As the administrators leave, calculating profits and losses on their tablets, you're left with the strange realization that you're both person and property, athlete and asset. Your life has been reduced to a series of financial calculations, cost of maintenance versus potential earnings, risk of death against reward of victory. In a perverse way, it's clarifying. At least you know exactly what you're worth. 50 sesterces a day, plus feed, until you die or earn your freedom. Night falls over the ludus like a suffocating blanket, and the evening rituals begin. You file into the small shrine dedicated to Nemesis, goddess of revenge and fortune's wheel, where gladiators perform ceremonies that would make a rational philosopher weep. The altar is cluttered with offerings, clay penises for virility, lead curse tablets against tomorrow's opponents, and bizarre amalgamations of religious traditions that reflect the international makeup of your profession. You watch a Celtic fighter sacrifice a mouse to his war god, while a Syrian prays to Baal and an Egyptian mutters incantations to Anubis. Your own beliefs have become a confused hodgepodge since entering the ludus. Were you raised honoring Jupiter? Did you once follow Christ? It doesn't matter now. Here, you worship whoever might keep steel out of your intestines. You drop a copper coin at Nemesis's feet, a pitiful offering but all you can afford, and mutter a prayer that's half Roman formula, half desperate pleading. Great Nemesis, turner of fortune's wheel, let my enemy's blade be dull and his courage duller. The superstitions run deeper than formal religion. Every fighter has his pre-bout rituals, accumulated like barnacles on a ship's hull. Brutus the Briton always enters the arena left foot first. Marcus the Macedonian refuses to fight without a specific amulet. A dried rabbit's foot, he claims, came from a beast that outran 100 hunters. You're developing your own quirks, like touching the doorframe 3 times before entering any room and avoiding the color yellow on fight days. Rationality has no place here, where random death makes fools of logic. New moon tomorrow, observes Festus, consulting a calendar scratched into the barracks wall. Bad time for fighting. The god's eyes are closed. Others nod sagely, as if celestial mechanics directly influence whether a trident finds your liver. But who are you to mock? Last week, you saw a gladiator survive certain death when his opponent slipped on what might have been divine intervention or might have been pigeon droppings. In the arena, both explanations seem equally valid. The curse tablets fascinate you with their mixture of literacy and lunacy. Those who can write scratch elaborate maledictions on lead sheets. May Castor's sword arm wither like a diseased vine. May his children forget his name. May his penis become as useful as a bronze one. These are folded and dropped into the shrine's collection box, presumably delivered to the underworld by helpful spirits. The illiterate hire scribes who specialize in creative cursing, a profession that exists because people will pay for elaborate ways to wish harm on others. Dreams carry special weight in this environment, where death lurks behind every corner. Heretiarius wakes screaming about drowning in sand, which the dream interpreters declare means either certain victory or certain death. Helpful, as always. Another fighter claims he dreamed of his grandmother offering him honeyed dates, a sure sign he should bet on himself in the next games. You've started a dream journal of sorts, scratching symbols on your cell wall to track which visions precede victories versus defeats. So far, the correlation is meaningless, but the act of recording feels like control. The religious syncretism would horrify a traditional Roman priest. You've seen gladiators create entirely new deities by combining aspects of different gods. Mercurius Rex, who guides both commerce and combat, or Venus Victrix merged with the Thracian Bendis. One creative theologian has invented Gladiators, patron god of professional fighters, complete with improvised rituals involving sand, sweat, and what might generously be called singing. Historians still argue whether these hybrid cults were genuine religious innovation or just desperate men grasping for any spiritual edge. Magic charms dangle from every neck, wrist, and available appendage. The Egyptian fighters favor Eye of Horus amulets, while Germans prefer Thor's hammers carved from bone. Romans stick with traditional bulla, though filled with everything from hair of a successful gladiator to powdered crocodile teeth. You've acquired a small bronze phallus that supposedly wards off the evil eye, though its main effect seems to be amusing the prostitutes who visit on festival days. As the evening deepens, you participate in a purification ritual that involves everyone spitting into a communal bowl while chanting. The bowl's contents are then flung at the barracks walls to drive away malevolent spirits. It's absurd, disgusting, and strangely comforting, in a world where death is both random and inevitable. These rituals provide an illusion of control, a fantasy that proper observation of omens and correct placement of amulets might influence fate. You know it's probably meaningless, but that probably leaves just enough room for hope. And hope is the only currency that matters when tomorrow might bring a sword through your skull. The dinner bell clangs, and you trudge toward the mess hall where the evening meal awaits, if you can call it a meal. The gladiator diet is a study in contradictions, designed to build bulk while keeping you financially viable. You queue up for your portion, a massive bowl of barley gruel mixed with beans, onions, and enough olive oil to make it slide down your throat without active rebellion. It's the same thing you ate yesterday, the same thing you'll eat tomorrow, a monotonous fuel that transforms into the muscle and fat that might keep you alive. "Eat up, my beauties," cackles the head cook. A former gladiator himself who lost his leg below the knee to a particularly aggressive secutor. Need meat on those bones for the crowds to appreciate. He ladles out portions with the generosity of someone who understands that underfed fighters make poor entertainment. Your bowl weighs enough to strain your wrists, a grey-brown mass that smells vaguely of fermentation and despair. You settle at your usual spot and begin the ritual of consumption. The barley is cooked to mush, easier to digest and quicker to convert to energy. Around you, men shovel food with mechanical determination, not for pleasure, but for survival. The diet makes you heavy, not fat exactly, but padded with a layer of bulk that serves as primitive armor. A thin gladiator is a dead gladiator. Those abs the sculptors love to carve would get you killed in real combat. "Know what this needs?" jokes Hanno the Phoenician, producing a small pot of garum that's probably stolen. More rotten fish sauce really brings out the flavor of sadness. He dumps the pungent liquid over his portion, and the smell makes your eyes water. But garum is protein, and protein is life. So you motion for him to pass it over. The taste is what you imagine the river Styx might flavor like: fishy, salty, and somehow both rotten and addictive. Between mouthfuls, you notice the dietary supplements that separate successful gladiators from corpses. Veterans mix ash into their water, creating a gritty drink that supposedly strengthens bones. The practice started when someone noticed gladiators who ate charred meat seemed to suffer fewer fractures. Now everyone drinks this grey sludge, grimacing through what tastes like liquid cremation. Historians still argue whether it actually worked or was just another placebo in an industry built on false hope. The medicus has prescribed additional rations based on your fighting style. As a retiarius, you need agility more than pure bulk, so you get extra portions of cheese and eggs when available. The heavyweight secutors receive double barley rations and occasional red meat, building the massive frames needed to carry 60 pounds of armor. It's nutritional science reduced to its crudest form: calories in, violence out. "Tomorrow's market day," announces a trainer. "Meat for those who've won their last fight." A cheer goes up from the qualified fighters. Meat is rare enough to be currency here. You've seen men trade a piece of goat for a week's wine ration. The protein makes a noticeable difference in recovery and performance. But it's expensive, reserved for those proving their worth. You qualify, barely. Having survived 2 encounters with men who wanted you dead. Water is mixed with vinegar, creating posca, the drink of soldiers and slaves throughout the empire. It's supposedly healthier than straight water, though you suspect that's just because the vinegar masks the taste of whatever died in the cistern. You drink gallons of it daily, replacing the sweat that pours off you like rain. Dehydration kills as surely as any blade, so you force down cup after cup of the sour mixture. For dessert, and using that term loosely, there's occasional fruit, usually overripe figs or dates that even the street vendors couldn't sell. Tonight, it's pomegranates, probably because someone important died and their funeral leftovers found their way here. You suck the seeds, the burst of sweetness almost painful after the bland bulk of barley. Around you, grown men fight over the last pieces like children, because in this place, small pleasures become enormous. The meal ends with the communal passing of wine, watered down to homeopathic levels but still wine. It's not about intoxication. Drunk gladiators are dead gladiators, but about the ritual, the brief moment of civilization in this barbaric existence. You take your sip, pass the cup, and feel your belly distended with the night's fuel. Tomorrow this nutrition will become sweat and blood on the sand. Tonight, it's just uncomfortable fullness and the knowledge that you've eaten better than most free Romans, even if it tastes like punishment. After dinner, the ludus transforms into a different kind of arena, one where the combat involves size and silk instead of swords and sand. The prostitutes arrive as they do every third night, admitted by guards who've been properly bribed, and suddenly the barracks atmosphere shifts from martial to carnal. But these aren't your average suburban streetwalkers. These are specialists who understand their clientele might die tomorrow and charge accordingly. You watch from your cell as negotiations begin, a fascinating economy of desire and death. The women range from aging professionals who've been servicing gladiators since before you were born, to fresh-faced girls, drawn by curiosity and the promise of coin. They know exactly what they're dealing with. Men who kill for a living and might have hours or years left to live. The prices reflect this dangerous glamour. A gladiator's company costs triple what a normal customer pays. "Celadus is here," squeals one regular, a Syrian woman whose enthusiasm seems genuine. Celadus the Thracian has won 19 fights and accumulated a following that would make actors jealous. Women scratch his name on walls throughout Rome. Celadus makes the girls sigh, and Celadus, glory of girls, heartbreak of husbands. He disappears into a cell with 2 admirers, and the sounds that follow suggest his stamina extends beyond the arena. But it's not just professionals who seek gladiatorial company. Through the bars, you glimpse veiled figures slipping through shadows, wealthy matrons and merchants' wives pursuing dangerous liaisons. There's something about proximity to death that acts as an aphrodisiac for bored Roman housewives. They pay enormous sums for discreet encounters with men who might be dead by sunset tomorrow. One senator's wife reportedly spent her entire dowry on gifts for a murmillo who didn't even speak her language. Your own experiences are more modest, a few times. You've scraped together enough coin for basic relief with Claudia, a Gallic woman who appreciates that you bathe more often than most. She tells you about her other life, 2 children with a baker, a husband who thinks she weaves for rich houses at night. "We all wear masks," she says, tracing the scars on your chest. Yours just happen to be made of metal. The sexual hierarchy mirrors the arena rankings, or successful gladiators have their pick, often for free, while newcomers pay inflated prices for rushed encounters. You've seen teenage boys, fresh to the ludus, pool their meager resources for a single shared woman who instructs them with patient professionalism. It's education of a sort, preparing them for the possibility that their first time might also be their last. Romance, when it happens, is complicated by the peculiar legal status of gladiators. You're infamis, legally disgraceful, unable to marry freeborn Romans, but that doesn't stop emotional connections from forming. Marcus the Macedonian has been conducting a 5-year affair with a fishmonger's daughter who brings him extra garum and cries every time he enters the arena. Their children, legally bastards, will never know their father's name if he dies, but she keeps coming back. The fertility charms and contraceptive pessaries change hands like battle tokens. Women who sleep with gladiators often want souvenirs, hair, blood, even sweat-soaked cloth that supposedly enhances their own fertility. You've sold your training tunic to a merchant's wife who believed gladiator sweat would help her conceive. The 10 denarii bought you a week of better wine and the unsettling knowledge that someone was using your bodily fluids for magical purposes. My husband thinks gladiator blood cures his impotence, confides one regular visitor after her 3rd cup of wine. I let him believe it while I come here for the real cure. The laughter is bitter, but honest. These women risk everything: reputation, marriage, even physical safety, for encounters with men trained to channel violence. Some bear bruises from rough handling. Occupational hazards they seem to accept as fair trade for whatever they're seeking. The evening's activities wind down as the 3rd watch approaches. Women slip away into darkness. Coins change hands, and the ludus settles back into its normal state of barely contained violence. You lie on your pallet, listening to the snores and occasional sobs that fill the night. Tomorrow you might die. But tonight you've touched human warmth, however briefly and transactionally, in this place where everything is measured in blood and coin. Even love becomes another form of combat, another arena where victory is temporary and defeat is always one mistake away. Sleep eludes you like a senator avoiding taxes. You lie on your straw pallet, staring at the ceiling where previous occupants have scratched their names, victories, and final thoughts. Marcus Aurelius, 7 victories, died well, reads one. Another simply says, "Mother, forgive me." The graffiti forms a necrology of the cell's former residents, men who lay where you lay, thought what you think, and now fertilize some unmarked corner of the gladiator cemetery. Tomorrow is a game day. Not the grand spectacles at the Colosseum, but a provincial magistrate's election games. 5 pairs fighting, winner takes all. You're matched against a secutor named Taurus, a bull of a man who's killed 3 opponents and maimed 2 others. The betting odds favor him 2-1, which perversely makes you feel better. Lower expectations mean less pressure to provide elaborate entertainment before dying. Around you, the ludus settles into its pre-fight rhythms. Some men snore with the peace of those who've accepted fate. Others pace their cells like caged leopards, burning precious energy on anxiety. From 2 cells over comes the sound of someone praying in Germanic. The words incomprehensible, but the tone universal. Please, gods, not tomorrow. Not like this, not yet. You wonder if the gods speak Germanic, or if they, like Roman bureaucrats, require all petitions in proper Latin. Your mind replays training sequences obsessively. Taurus fights orthodox style, shield high, stabbing over the top, relentless forward pressure. Your advantage lies in reach and mobility. Keep him at trident length. Tangle his feet with a net. Make him carry that armor until exhaustion does half your work. Africanus drilled this into you. A retiarius who lets a secutor close distance is already dead. You're not a warrior. You're a dancer with a very sharp partner. The fear isn't what you expected. It's not the sharp terror of immediate danger, but a slow, grinding dread that sits in your stomach like spoiled meat. Every shadow could be your last. Every breath might be numbered. You count them sometimes, wondering if you're approaching some predetermined total. Breathing becomes conscious, labored, as if your lungs know they might stop tomorrow and want to squeeze every bit of air from the present. Memory becomes urgently important. You try to recall your mother's face, but the features blur like watercolors in rain. Were her eyes brown or hazel? Did she have that mole on her left cheek or right? The forgetting panics you more than tomorrow's violence. If you die tomorrow, Who will remember that you once had a mother who sang while grinding grain? That you had a name before Retiarius number 7? Other fighters have their own pre-fight rituals of insomnia. Gracchus writes letters he'll never send to children who might not remember him. The ink is watered-down charcoal, the paper stolen papyrus scraps, but he writes with the dedication of a court scribe. Hanno sharpens a wooden training sword, the repetitive scraping a meditation against mortality. Someone else masturbates with grim determination, spending what might be his last seed on the straw-filled mattress. You drift into half-sleep, where anxiety breeds surreal dreams. You're fighting in an arena filled with water. Your net dissolves. Taurus has your father's face. The crowd consists entirely of previous versions of yourself, all shouting contradictory advice. You wake with a start, sweat-soaked and disoriented, unsure if seconds or hours have passed. The cell remains dark, time measured only by the changing quality of snores around you. Dawn creeps through the barred window like an unwelcome creditor. Your last thought before the wake-up bell is absurdly practical. If you die today, who gets your good sandals? You've seen men expire with their final words being about debt collection, or which whore gives honest weight. Perhaps that's how the mind protects itself, focusing on trivialities when contemplating extinction proves too vast. The bell rings, bronze announcing another day of violence for profit. You rise, vertebrae protesting, and begin preparing for what might be your last morning. Around you, 40 other men do the same, each carrying their own pre-fight demons. Some will return tonight to these same cells, bloodied but breathing. Others will take the death cart to unmarked graves. The only certainty is uncertainty itself, which might be the cruelest aspect of gladiatorial life, not knowing whether today brings glory or gorging crows. The morning of the games arrives with all the subtlety of a war trumpet. You're roused before dawn, herded into the preparation chambers beneath the arena, where the real show begins hours before any spectator sees blood. The atmosphere is thick with oil, incense, and the acrid smell of fear sweat as dozens of fighters undergo transformation from men into entertainment. You strip naked for the first of many inspections, ensuring no hidden weapons or protective charms that might spoil the crowd's fun. The oiling comes first, performed by slaves who slather your skin with cheap olive oil mixed with dust to prevent opponents from getting clean grips. Their hands are impersonal, efficient, treating your body like furniture being polished. The oil stings in yesterday's training cuts, but complaining would mark you as weak. Around you, other gladiators submit to the same treatment, bodies gleaming like bronze statues in the torchlight. Next comes the armor fitting, such as it is for a retiarius. Your manica, the arm guard, is strapped on with leather thongs pulled tight enough to cut off circulation. The shoulder guard, your only real protection, sits heavy and awkward. You adjust it obsessively, knowing that a finger's width of misplacement could mean the difference between a glancing blow and a severed artery. The secutores nearby are being encased in their metal shells, and you don't envy them the heat they'll endure. Open your mouth, orders the game's medicus, checking for diseases that might spread to valuable fighters. He peers at your teeth, prods your gums, examines your tongue like you're a horse at market. Satisfied you won't die of plague before providing entertainment, he moves on. Everything is inspection, evaluation, quality control. The editors who organize these games paid good money for healthy gladiators, and they'll complain if the merchandise appears substandard. The religious ceremonies begin. A parade of priests ensuring divine approval for the carnage. Incense thick enough to choke fills the preparation area as various deities are invoked. Mars receives a cockerel, its blood splattered on the sand you'll soon fight on. Neptune gets wine poured into a bronze bowl, appropriate since you fight with his trident. The Christians among you stand awkwardly aside, refusing to participate but not stupid enough to protest openly. Your stomach churns with the special nausea reserved for fight days, part hunger, part terror, part anticipation. The pre-fight meal was deliberately light, just bread and diluted wine. No one wants to see gladiators vomiting in the arena, and a full stomach slows reflexes, but the emptiness adds to the hollow feeling, as if you're already partially ghost. The weapons arrive under heavy guard, real steel replacing the wooden trainers. Your trident feels heavier than during practice, its points filed to wicked sharpness. You test the balance, noting how it differs slightly from what you've trained with. These small variations kill men, muscle memory betrayed by an ounce of different weight distribution. The net, at least, feels familiar, its lead weights clinking with a sound that's become oddly comforting. Retiarius, your third bout. A games official consults his tablet, organizing the schedule of death. After the beast hunt, before the Meridiani executions, try to last at least 10 minutes. The crowd hates quick kills in the featured matches. The casual discussion of your potential death's duration would be surreal if it weren't so routine. You're a line item in someone's entertainment budget, your life measured in how many minutes of distraction you provide. The parade begins, and you join the procession into the arena proper. The transition from dim underground to blazing sunlight temporarily blinds you. The crowd noise hits like a physical force. Thousands of voices merged into one hungry roar. You've done this twice before, but the sensory assault never becomes comfortable. The sand burns through your sandals, already hot despite the early hour. We who are about to die salute you. The traditional greeting to the game's editor rings out from 40 throats, some steady, others cracking with fear. You scan the crowd, seeing faces twisted with excitement, boredom, bloodlust. A patrician woman fans herself, looking mildly interested. Children munch snacks, pointing at the fighters like we're exotic animals, which, in a sense, you are. Dangerous creatures brought out for their amusement. The pompa continues with mind-numbing pageantry. Musicians, dancers, priests, and officials all taking their sweet time while you stand in the sun. Oil running in rivulets down your back. By the time the actual fighting starts, you're already exhausted from standing, waiting, being displayed. Perhaps that's intentional. Tired gladiators make more mistakes, and mistakes make for exciting deaths. The sand burns beneath your feet as you circle Taurus, both of you reduced to base instincts wrapped in minimal armor. The crowd's roar fades to white noise, your world shrinking to the 20-foot circle, where one of you will bleed out. He's everything you feared, massive, methodical, patient as a stone. His tower shield covers him from throat to thigh, and the gladius in his right hand has the worn look of a tool that's taken lives. You test his defenses with quick jabs of the trident, trying to find patterns in his movement. He turns with you, feet never crossing, maintaining perfect balance. The crowd grows restless at this careful dance. They paid for blood. Not a tactical seminar. Someone throws a half-eaten apple that lands between you, and the message is clear. Entertain us or face worse than your opponent. The first real exchange happens fast. Taurus surges forward with shocking speed for his size. You backpedal, casting the net in a desperate arc. It catches his shield, but not enough to matter. His sword whistles past your ribs, close enough to part the oil on your skin. You smell your own fear, sharp and shameful, as you scramble to maintain distance. Running won't save you, so fish boy, he growls, voice muffled by his helmet, but still audible. This is gamesmanship, anything to get in your head, make you angry, make you stupid. You've been trained to ignore taunts, but training and reality diverge when steel seeks your organs. Your response is to feint left and snap the trident at his face, forcing him to raise the shield and momentarily blind himself. The patterns emerge as you fight. He favors attacks from your left, counting on his shield to deflect your counters. His footwork is textbook, but predictable. Always the same reset after a thrust. You catalogue these tells while trying not to die, building a mental map of his vulnerabilities. The sun climbs higher, turning his armor into a portable oven. Sweat streams down his face, and his breathing grows labored. Time favors you if you can survive it. Your net catches his sword arm during his next rush. Not fully. He's too experienced for that, but enough to tangle his movement. You capitalize, driving the trident low toward his exposed thigh. He twists desperately, taking the points on his greave instead of flesh. The bronze screams against iron, and the crowd erupts. First blood hasn't been drawn, but they smell its possibility. The editor, some merchant who made his fortune selling garum, leans forward in his box, chins wobbling with excitement. He's getting his money's worth, the bastard. You wonder if he knows your name, or if you're just the retiarius in his mental accounting. Probably the latter. Individual gladiators matter only as much as their ability to die interestingly. Taurus adapts, abandoning textbook for brutality. He uses his shield as a battering ram, trying to simply crush you against the arena wall. You dance away, but the space shrinks with each exchange. The oval arena offers nowhere to hide, its walls lined with handlers ready to prod fleeing fighters back toward death. Your world becomes smaller with each heartbeat. Then you see it, the tell you've been waiting for. When he raises his arm for an overhand strike, his armpit gaps open for a breath span. It's minuscule, probably invisible from the stands, but your life depends on recognizing such moments. You bait the strike, watch him commit, and thrust the trident with every ounce of desperate strength. The center prong finds the gap, not deep. His sideways twist prevents that, but enough to punch through skin and muscle. Blood springs bright against bronze, and his first genuine sound of pain is sweeter than any crowd roar. You wrench the trident free as he staggers back, shield dropping slightly from the shock. The crowd bays for death now, scenting weakness like hounds. But you see something they don't. Taurus switching his sword to his shield hand, keeping the wounded side protected. He's hurt but far from finished, and wounded beasts fight hardest. The real battle starts now, painted in blood under the Roman sun. Historians still argue whether gladiatorial combat was choreographed or genuine. Standing here, gasping air that tastes of dust and metal, you know the answer. The violence is real as the blood now dripping onto sand. The only choreography is death itself, waiting in the wings for one of you to miss a step in this lethal dance. Blood changes everything. The sight of it running down Taurus's side drives the crowd into frenzy, their roar becoming a physical presence that seems to press against your skin. You circle your wounded opponent, noting how he now holds his shield slightly lower, how his pivots have lost their crisp precision. But wounded animals are dangerous, and you've seen enough arena deaths to know that overconfidence kills more gladiators than swords. The editor stands in his box, toga perfectly arranged despite the heat, waiting to render judgment. His thumb holds more power than any emperor in this moment, up for life, down for death. But that decision remains future tense. First, one of you must be defeated convincingly enough to warrant his intervention. The crowd's bloodlust demands satisfaction, and Roman crowds are notoriously hard to please. Taurus attacks with desperate fury, abandoning defense for aggression. His sword becomes a silver blur, driving you back toward the wall. You parry frantically with the trident, the wooden shaft groaning under the impacts. Splinters fly as bronze meets iron again and again. Your net, your secondary weapon, tangles uselessly around your own arm in the chaos. Training never prepared you for this, the raw animal panic of mortal combat where technique dissolves into instinct. Then your sandal catches in a divot left by an earlier fight. Time slows as you stumble, balance lost, trident wavering. Taurus sees the opening and lunges, sword aimed at your exposed throat. You have perhaps a heartbeat to live, maybe two. Your body moves without conscious thought, dropping beneath the thrust and rolling left. Sand fills your mouth, nose, eyes, but you're alive. The sword passes through air where your neck was, and momentum carries Taurus forward. You come up behind him, half blind with grit but knowing opportunity when it presents itself. The net, still tangled around your arm, unfurls with a snap of your wrist. Lead weights wrap around his legs as he tries to turn. He goes down hard, shield flying from his grip. The crowd's roar reaches impossible volumes as you plant your foot on his back. Trident points hovering above his spine. Missio, he gasps out the plea for mercy, face pressed into sand. The decision passes to the editor, but more importantly, to the mob. You look up at thousands of faces, seeing every human emotion reflected in their expressions. Some scream for death, making downward stabbing motions. Others wave white cloth, voting for mercy. The editor watches this democracy of blood, gauging which choice will make him more popular. You risk a glance at Taurus beneath your foot. He's young, maybe 20 summers, with the kind of face that belongs on a farm, not an arena floor. His wound still bleeds, creating patterns in the sand that look almost artistic. You wonder about his story: slave, volunteer, criminal. Does he have family watching? Children who'll either see their father die or return broken? The editor raises his hand for silence, milking the moment. This is his show, his gift to the voters, and he'll squeeze every drop of drama from it. You see him consulting with advisors, probably calculating political advantages. A merciful editor appears magnanimous. A harsh one appears strong. Both can backfire depending on the crowd's mood. Finally, the thumb rises, missio granted. The crowd erupts in mixed reactions, some approving, others feeling cheated of a death. You step back, allowing Taurus to rise. He stands shakily, pressing a hand to his wound, and manages the slightest nod of gratitude before medics escort him away. You've both survived, which in this business counts as victory regardless of who technically won. As you exit the arena, legs shaking with exhaustion and relief, you catch sight of the death cart waiting in the shadows, empty for now. But the day is young. The executioners at noon won't receive mercy. Criminals and slaves deemed unworthy of even a gladiator's death. You've earned another scar, another day of life, another memory to carry. Tomorrow, you'll return to training, to the endless cycle of preparation for the next time the sand demands blood. But tonight, you'll drink wine that tastes of survival and sleep in a cell that isn't a grave. In the gladiator's life, these small victories matter more than any crowd's approval. You fed their hunger without feeding their crows. And sometimes that's the best anyone can hope for. The victory celebration, such as it is, tastes of cheap wine and temporary reprieve. You sit in the ludus dining hall as twilight paints the walls purple, surrounded by the day's survivors and haunted by those who didn't return. The cart brought back 3 bodies: a Thracian who took a sword through the eye, a young provocator who bled out from a severed artery, and Marcus the Macedonian, your friend who shared his wine just yesterday. His death was reportedly glorious, which means he entertained the crowd while dying. Your own survival feels unreal, like borrowed time from the gods. The wound on your shoulder throbs where Taurus's sword kissed at flesh, not deep, but enough to scar. Another addition to your growing collection, each mark a story written in skin. The medicus stitched it with his usual efficiency, muttering about fighters who can't keep their blood inside where it belongs. You're alive, which makes you one of his success stories. 23 more, Festus says, staring into his wine cup like it holds prophecies. He's counting victories toward the Rudis, the wooden sword of freedom that awaits gladiators who survive long enough to earn it. 23 more fights where death might claim him. 23 more mornings of wondering if sunset will find him breathing. The mathematics of manumission are simple and cruel. Most die counting. You think about freedom constantly now, though it seemed an impossible dream when you first arrived. Some veterans speak of life after the arena, teaching at other schools, working as bodyguards for wealthy patrons, even opening their own businesses with their peculiar fame. But others whisper darker truths, that freedom from the ludus doesn't mean freedom from the past. You'll always be a gladiator, always carry that infamy, always be the man who killed for crowds' amusement. The successful fighters who earned their Rudis often return, unable to adapt to regular life. They miss the simplicity of the arena, where every problem has a straightforward solution: kill or die. Outside these walls, the world operates on different rules, softer but somehow harder. You've heard of freed gladiators starving because they don't understand commerce, dying in bar fights because they can't turn off the training, drinking themselves to death because wine is the only thing that quiets the ghosts. Still, the dream persists. You imagine walking through a city gate without chains, choosing your own destination, eating when hungry rather than when commanded. Simple freedoms that free-born Romans take for granted become fantasy worthy of epic poems. Some nights you plan elaborate futures, sailing to distant lands where nobody knows what gladiator means, finding honest work, maybe even a woman who sees more than just a killer with interesting scars. But the ludus always intrudes on these dreams. Tomorrow brings more training, more pain, more preparation for the next time you'll dance with death for strangers' entertainment. The cycle continues relentlessly. Train, fight, survive or die, repeat. You're trapped in a wheel that turns on blood and spectacle, grinding men into memories for crowds that forget your name before reaching their homes. You fought well today, says the lanista, making his evening rounds. Coming from him, it's less compliment than assessment. Your stock value increased with victory. Keep winning like that, and someday he doesn't finish. But the implication hangs heavy. Someday you might earn your freedom. Someday you might matter as more than profit margin. Someday, but not today. The wine makes you philosophical as night deepens. You wonder if any gladiator truly wins freedom, even those who walk away with wooden swords. The arena marks you, changes you at levels deeper than scars. You've seen death's face too often, dealt it too casually, survived by becoming something less than human, but more than animal. Can that transformation reverse? Or do you carry the arena inside forever? A portable prison of memory and trained violence. Around you, men drift toward their cells for another night of uncertain dreams. Tomorrow, they'll wake as gladiators, train as gladiators, prepare to die as gladiators. The fortunate few might eventually leave these walls, but you suspect they'll discover what you're beginning to understand, that the ludus is both physical place and state of mind. Once you've tasted blood on sand, part of you remains there forever, fighting endless battles for crowds that exist only in memory. Freedom, you realize, isn't just about earning the rudies. It's about believing you deserve to live as more than entertainment, more than profitable death postponed. That might be the hardest fight of all. The oil lamps flicker lower now, casting dancing shadows across stone walls that have witnessed countless last nights and false hopes. Your eyelids grow heavy with the weight of survival, each blink lasting longer than the last. Around you, the ludus settles into its nocturnal rhythms, snores of the exhausted, occasional whimpers from those reliving arena horrors, the eternal drip of water somewhere in the darkness. You pull the thin blanket higher, its coarse weave familiar as your own skin by now. Tomorrow feels distant, abstract, a concept that exists beyond the immediate comfort of horizontal rest. Your muscles unwind incrementally, releasing the day's violence into the straw mattress. The shoulder wound throbs in time with your heartbeat, a lullaby of mortality that somehow soothes rather than disturbs. Perhaps this is what peace means in the gladiator's world. Not the absence of violence, but these quiet intervals between its expressions. The space where you exist as neither warrior nor victim, just flesh requiring rest. Your breathing deepens, matching the rhythm of sleeping killers who've become your brothers in this strange fraternity of the condemned. Somewhere beyond these walls, Rome continues its eternal bustle, citizens planning tomorrows they assume will arrive. But here in the ludus, certainty extends only to the next breath, the next heartbeat, the next precious moment of not dying. It's a terrible freedom, this release from future's burden. But tonight, it allows sleep to approach on gentle feet. Your final thought dissolves incomplete as consciousness fades. The arena will wait, death will wait, for now. There's only darkness and the simple animal comfort of survival for one more day. Sleep claims you like a merciful opponent, granting the small victory of temporary oblivion.